Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Second Act Actors. I'm your host, Dr. Janet McMorty, and I was and still very much am a medical doctor, simultaneously trying to pursue a career in acting. My guest this week is Barry Clifton. Barry! That is my best Audrey Moore impersonation. Sorry, Audrey. Imitation is the most sincerest form of flattery. If you don't know who Audrey Moore is or the Audrey Helps Actors podcast, I highly recommend you check both her and her podcast out. It was and still am an incredible resource for myself as a beginning actor and now myself as a, full-on actor. And I met Barry through the Audrey Moore podcast. She did a self-tape with Barry, taping with her on a fantastic online platform called We Audition. If you don't know what We Audition is, I highly recommend you check that as well too. Once again, I make no money from recommending these things. I wish I did, but I don't. They're just wonderful resources, the both of them. So Audrey had talked about taping with Barry on We Audition and talking about what a great guy he is, and of course I did the next logical thing. I stalked him on Instagram and I slid into his DMs. And he and I are both second act actors. In fact, he is the second act actor. He has a website, secondactactor.com. I have secondactactors.com. We are not affiliated with each other, but we support one another personally because, when one of us shines, all of us shine. Thank you, Moira Rose. Because he is a former U.S. Marine and businessman, now turned actor. You may recognize him from such shows as The Thing About Pam and an upcoming show that I don't think I'm allowed to talk about, even though he told me about, because he's probably under a non-disclosure agreement. But he is probably the most charming person I've ever met, and you will see when you take a look at our conversation. He is a wonderful human being. We do talk a lot about some pretty in-depth, deep stuff. He has an incredible journey through, again, being in the Marine Corps, as well as going through a journey through sobriety, and now this wonderful acting career that he has. And he talks about something that I love, which is building the team around you, building your team of supporters and cheerleaders and people who are really encouraging you to go towards your acting career and build you up in your acting career as opposed to break it down. Please enjoy the incredible second act actor himself, Barry Clifton. Story. How did you get into this acting business?
Well, I'm sure you've heard it before. It was Mom's fault. Thankfully, thank God, my mother gave me the greatest gift of all, an appreciation of the performing arts. And she got me involved in musical theater and community theater in Fort Smith, Arkansas, what was then West Ark Community College. It's now the University of Arkansas at Fort Smith. And I was probably 9-10 years old when I did The Music Man and did Carousel a couple of times and 1776 and all those old classic musicals, And I just remember just loving everything about it. The people, primarily. I remember how fun show people were, And it just was something I was in love with at a very young age. And also, and I don't know if one stemmed from the other, but every time I went to the movies, I would come out and I would be those characters for hours or days, the swashbuckling movies in particular, the pirate movies, the whatever. I remember just coming out of the theater and wanting to be those people.
That's awesome. So did you go to theater school?
I did not. So
No.
I did that from roughly 9 to 13, 15, something like that. And several things happened. My father passed away. I just made a series of bad decisions starting at that point. And basically set aside acting, if you will. I took about a 40-year sabbatical and pretty much forgot that I liked to act. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of that has to do with drinking. I became a very heavy drinker, an alcoholic, in fact. And I didn't set aside acting. The disease for me was so insidious that I forgot that I wanted to act. I mean, just completely forgot it. And I was sober about 10 years before it started creeping back in. And I realized that was, I remembered how much I loved it and realized that it wasn't too late. So that's kind of the big picture without too much detail.
Yeah. Do you remember back 10 years ago when that started creeping back in? Like, what brought that on?
Well, it's kind of funny. There were two things. One, I don't think it's a coincidence that shortly after my mother passed away, the passion was rekindled. I think she is and always was my muse. And I don't know. I believe in kind of a spiritual side to this thing. And there was also something that happened because I did get an agent and booked a couple of things prior to that, I suppose. But I did a casting director workshop with Ryan Glorioso out of New Orleans. He came up here to Little Rock at the agency, is the name of the agency here, the Agency Inc., and did a casting director workshop. And he posted a bunch of scenes. I picked a scene and performed it, and I used the word perform loosely. And I stunk up the room. And it was funny because Yancey said, I'm putting you in the A group. And I was like, oh, come on, don't pander to me. He said, no, anyone who's been in a major motion picture, because I was in a film called Chasing the Dragon. The only review I ever read said this movie was harder to watch than it was to find. And I had a line, water's back on. That was my line. I was the utility guy. So anyway, so I was in this A group, and there were some wonderful actors. One of them, Candace Hinkle, Paige Reynolds. There's these wonderful local actors who have quite a few credits. And I was with this group, and I performed this horrible scene. And Sarah Tackett was running the agency at the time, and we were talking afterwards, and she came up. I said, golly, I really stunk the room up. And thank God she didn't say, no, honey, that's okay. She didn't say that. She said, well, you don't have the experience these people have. And that was a turning point, because I realized, well, no kidding. How could I know any better? And that's when I realized that I had to become intentional about my acting career, And so I decided, now this doesn't speak so much to the why I wanted to do it, I don't suppose. But as far as what I did, I realized I needed to get some experience. I needed to, if I wanted to do this thing, I couldn't just show up and I hope this isn't offensive, but at that time I was what I like to refer to as a mall, if you're familiar with the term. Model, actor, whatever,
Interesting, yes. Yeah. I've heard that before. Okay, yeah.
And so I thought the best way to do that would be get some practice auditioning. So I started auditioning for local community theater and started getting cast in these plays. Two plays back to back, which I realized was too much. Like anything else, I tend to overdo things. Got some experience on stage. The first experience I had getting back on stage for the first time in nearly 40 years, there was someone doing a production of Macbeth. I figured, why not, jump in with something easy.
Yeah, right.
And they had someone drop out. So she said, great, you're in. I said, well, don't you want me to audition? Yeah, if you want to, come on in. They needed a body. And thank God they did, because it was a fun experience. It was a lovely, dilapidated black box theater here called the Public Theater, where they have one restroom, and it's called the Public Restroom. And it's a dilapidated black box theater, and I just love it. And so that was kind of the start. The start back, I guess.
Mm-hmm. In your 40-year hiatus, tell me about the work that you did then. Work not just like what made you money, but also like during your time in that hiatus, what was going on? I know there was some tough personal stuff, but anything else you were noticing?
Yeah, some of the most formative stuff was I didn't run away from home and join the circus. I ran away from home and joined the Marine Corps. At 17 years old, I was a bright kid, see, so I got tired of people telling me what to do, so I joined the Marine Corps. That was, I did learn some things. I didn't necessarily practice those things well when I was in the Marine Corps, because I was still bad to drink. Let me just put it that way. But I still learned those lessons and can apply them today. The tenacity, the stick-to-itiveness, never give up. Also learned how to, and Adam Driver talks about this. He was a Marine as well. How the similarities between being in the service in the Marine Corps and acting. You know, you have a group of people who don't know each other. You come together and you have to form a cohesive unit very quickly with one clear person in charge, and to perform a common task. You know, and so I did learn that, and so that served me well. Also, the hurry up and wait. You know how it is when you go to set. You know, you can be in your trailer for hours and hours and hours, and you're on set for 15 minutes. You know, so that's okay. It's not a problem for me. It's something I'm used to. So that I was in the Marine Corps, and then as far as work, there's really no history to talk about. That's when the drinking got really bad, and I went from job to job to job. Nothing really significant, you know, sacking. Well, I did sack groceries at one point. Matter of fact, that was the last job I had before I got sober. It was the best job I could get. I was lucky to have that, sacking groceries. And the reason I mention that is, if you don't mind me just jumping back and forth a little bit, Bonnie Gillespie has a group on Facebook called, she wrote a book called Self-Management for Actors. She has a group on Facebook, and she talks about, and you'll probably relate to this as far as auditions go, she talks about resacking the groceries. And she says, you know, if you've ever sacked groceries, have you ever run out to the parking lot and stopped someone, excuse me, I put the peas in with the carrots. I really should have put the meat in with the potatoes and stuff. Do you mind if I move those around in the sack? You know, and that's what we do with auditions. You know, no one ever resacks the groceries, but we want to do that with every audition. But anyway, I started into, after I got sober, I shortly thereafter got into sales, which is what my great-grandfather, my grandfather, and my father were salespeople. I remember my grandfather telling me years ago, the only way to make really good money without a college degree in this country is in sales, commission salesman. So I became a salesman. And in a sense, you know, I suppose that's acting in a way. But anyway, that's what I did for the last, probably the last 30 years of my career in business. The last 10 years, I was in sales management for a metal building company. I did learn some things about business that come in handy, and in one of your earlier podcasts, she talked about using Excel every day, and I would have to use Excel. You know, it's great. It's a great tool for analyzing data. Now, where that comes in handy now, another member of my team, which I want to talk about later on, is Audrey Moore. I've done career coaching sessions with her, and you know, she talks about a show Bible. So I have a show Bible that I keep in Microsoft Excel. So I'm still using Excel, and I analyze the data. Matter of fact, I could pull up my numbers. Be happy to go over my 2021 numbers with you. You know, how many auditions, how many callbacks, how many bookings. And she talks about how that's a way to determine if you are working properly. You know, if your package is in good order, if your reps are doing what they need to do, if everything's aligned. And so I keep track of that stuff. And now I've only done that for faithfully in 2021. So I've only got, and actually in January of 2021 is when I started doing this full time. So that's a good starting point. But now I find myself thinking, well, where was I this time last year? You know, and I think that's healthy to do to some degree. But, you know, the industry's changing, especially with COVID, as those, hopefully, the restrictions lessen up, productions will increase. So this year should be different than last year. But at least I have that data to look at. So I learned that. I also learned, you know, I waited, when I said that line, water's back on, I became SAG eligible. And because I was working full time, I couldn't travel. There's very few SAG productions in Arkansas. I didn't join the union for a long time. And now that I have joined, I take it pretty seriously. I've become involved with the Screen Actors Guild quite a bit since joining. And so when they talk about the contract negotiations with the studios and so forth and the producers, I understand that as a business, every year in sales, no matter, especially in management, no matter how much we increased our margins, no matter how much we did, every year we were instructed by the board of directors, you know, on down, that you need to increase your profits and reduce your costs. So I know that producers are being pressured from their shareholders to increase margins and reduce costs. And I just want them to find other ways to do that rather than reducing actors' salaries or making people, especially the crew, sometimes working way longer hours than they should, to where it becomes unsafe. And we've heard about other unsafe activities on set. So I understand their need to reduce costs, but just don't do it at the expense of the actors or the crew.
And I know Audrey talks about this a lot in her podcast as well too, but your mindset being very business data, like kind of analytical and sales driven, right? I think that's extremely important for actors. Like you were saying, actors are a business, actors are self-employed entrepreneurs and need to come at this with that mindset. I worry sometimes, I know with myself, if I go too business oriented with my very logical brain, that I lose some of the creativity, right? Because you're coming at it like it's a machine and here's all the data and you can control it. But the beauty of acting is the creativity and the unpredictability of it. How do you balance the two of those as someone who was very creative as a kid?
Well, the analytical part of the job never really came easy to me. I remember when I first interviewed for the management position, the general manager at the time, he said, "Do you like numbers?" And I was like, "No." And he said, "Well, you got to learn to love numbers, because they tell a story. They don't tell the whole story, but they do tell a story." So I did learn to appreciate data, and it does give you information. Again, it doesn't give you all the information you need, but it gives you a way of looking at things. And I think one of the things that I learned is in an email. Thank God for unsent emails. I have thousands of unsent emails in business. Same thing in this business. I'll write an email. Usually I'll let it sit for a while and then go back and change it a little bit. I think sometimes in my emails I still have that business mindset. And I think sometimes they can be a little bit cold and clinical. But the kind of organic side is more my true nature. So I think I just have to remember, it's harder for me to focus on the business side of things. I've got to remember to do that. Like if if you get an offer, it's like, yeah, sure. It's not like, well, what's the pay? Are you going to travel me? What's the, what contract is it under? It's just a jump to the yes real quick. Thankfully, I have some good reps that'll look, take care of me in that area. And balancing anything in my life is difficult. Trying to balance, acting takes a lot of time and a lot of commitment. Well, I've got a lovely family, wife, 2 grandkids, and my daughter's getting married Sunday, this Sunday.
Oh, and, congratulations.
Thank you. The most important role of my life, she has asked me to officiate at the wedding.
Oh, wow.
So I became an ordained Dudist minister and will be performing the ceremony.
What's a Dudist?
A Dudist, are you familiar with The Big Lebowski?
Okay, I was thinking that's what it was. I was like, there's no way that's what it is.
That's what it is. I'm a Dudist minister. Went down to the state of Arkansas. They put their seal on it. I gave them $5 and I can perform marriages.
I love it. That's so great. That'll be one. That's so special.
Yeah,
that's
and
so
she
cool.
won't. I can't wear a bathrobe and shorts though.
So you mentioned about your team that you've grown around you, the people who are around you supporting you. As somebody who, and I'm in this boat as well too, coming from, I didn't have a theater school background. I didn't come with a team well formed from a career in acting or the entertainment industry. Had to find it, right? Find the team. How did you find the team that you now have?
Sure. Well, the first time I even thought about a team, it was my favorite thing about Leonardo DiCaprio's acceptance speech for The Revenant. He said, "First, I want to thank my team." And I remember just immediately thinking, oh, I want one of those. Someday, and I remember thinking, someday maybe I'll get big. Well, and I realized you don't wait for someday. You can assemble a team at any time. Because a team is just, it's not like they work for me or anything like that. It's just that they help me on my journey. And so actually I met most of the people on my team through We Audition. I don't know if you're familiar with weaudition.com, but I was a reader on there, and this lovely lady came on and I helped her read for an audition. She booked the role, And then later on, a friend of mine who I'd met on We Audition, he messaged me and said, "Dude, Audrey mentioned you on her podcast." And I was like, "Audrey who did what?" And I had not heard of Audrey Moore or Audrey Helps Actors. So sure enough, I became familiar with that podcast and just ate it up. And learned a lot about the business side of things from that podcast. And then, she doesn't advertise a lot about it, but on her website, if you look hard, you can see that she does offer coaching. So Audrey Moore is my career coach, and through her, she gives you a lot of homework. And I did a lot of homework, and it took me probably 2 months to do that, and then got back with her. She had also suggested my audition coach, Courtney Cunningham. She has the course called Book the Room, Book the Role, which is a 7-week one-on-one intensive. So Courtney Cunningham is my audition coach, as well as Jennifer Lynn Warren, who I met on We Audition. That's my primary go-to coaches for auditions. And then through them, and also through Audrey, I met a stylist, Buckley Sampson, with Image by Buckley, because I knew I needed to get headshots. And let me stop for a minute and back up. So about 5 years roughly before I started doing this full time, I knew I was going to do that. I would, at that time, I would call it my sunset career. I was going to, I'm not going to retire. I'm going to shift to my sunset career. And so I wanted to be ready to hit the road when that happened. I didn't want to wait 5 years and then, try to assemble a team, try to get everything in order. So I started thinking about this stuff about 5 years ago. And now my boss told me I've been saying 5 years for about 8 years, but I don't think that's true. But so I started, getting some classes and getting headshots and doing work and doing self-tape practicing and things like that a little bit. And when I first started that, it's weird. I was a sales manager that did some acting on the side, and it kind of slowly, in some ways quickly, I suppose, I became an actor that was a sales manager as a I don't like the word survival job, but day job, thriving job, whatever you want to call it. But I became, in my head anyway, more and more of an actor that just wasn't able to do it full time yet. But by the time, and I actually ended up leaving the company about 6 months ahead of time, which I won't go into the reasons why, but I was planning on leaving in April and then left in January. But by that time, I had my career coaching. I had my audition coaches lined up. I don't think I had met Buckley yet, but I knew I needed new headshots. And Audrey talks about how it's so important that your headshots match your reel, match your resume, that it all comes together, because you really need to help casting directors have a very clear picture where to put you. And I've had 2 casting directors tell me specifically that. Your package is so clear. Your headshots are so clear. I know exactly where to put you. And that may change. I plan on looking at that again probably in about 6 or 8 months, because those headshots are getting close to a year old now. But anyway, so I had this team assembled, and that's how I met them, mostly from We Audition. But I would strongly suggest someone get career coaching. Get an audition coach. Well, yeah, and you may not need an audition coach. My career coach, Audrey, she said you need some help with execution. So she suggested Courtney, and she's wonderful. Matter of fact, she may come through Arkansas in July. I hope so. I'd like to meet her in person. Her and her dog Dakota. And we've become, colleagues, but we've also become somewhat of friends too. So that's a really neat thing. So anyway, used to, when I would get new headshots, I would just, grab some clothes and that I thought I looked good in or whatever, and show up and say, I'm here for my headshots. Well, in this case, working with a stylist was phenomenal, and she's in LA, but she can work remotely anywhere. And so we set up our first session, which probably talked for, 2 hours at least, about the different castings I was looking for. And through working with Audrey and through working with Courtney, I'd kind of fine-tuned, what I was getting auditions for, what my look was, this, that, and the other. And so Buckley and I talked, and we came up with 8 kind of specific, and one of them very specific. This is I like talking about this, because she said, a guy from a small town that leaves the small town and goes and becomes highly educated, like a doctor, a lawyer, whatever, but then decides to come back to the small town. You know, and I think that's a very specific casting, but you do see a lot of that, you know.
Yeah.
And so she worked with me. I took pictures of things in my closet, you know, and pictures of me wearing different things. And she sets up a private Pinterest page, and you know, exchange pictures and ideas. And she'll say, try this shirt with this jacket, this with that. She asked what my budget was at the beginning for clothing if I needed to purchase some. The most expensive thing I bought was the cowboy hat. I wanted to get a real cowboy hat, so I got a nice cowboy hat, and didn't have to buy that much. But, you know, I had these very specific things. And I also asked Buckley if she would help me, not just for headshots, but also for clothing to wear for auditions. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of the same thing. When possible, I try to find out when my reps, when I do get an audition, I want to know what picture they submitted with the submission. So that's very helpful. Golly, you asked about the team, and I went way farther than that. I do want to mention also, I'm fortunate enough, I've been with Yancey at the Agency Inc. in Arkansas for a long time. I also am repped in Los Angeles by Gene Winger with Treasure Coast Talent, and Terry McNeil with Del Corral in New Orleans. And just recently, just last week actually, Tabitha Kitt with Kitt International Talent in Oklahoma City, and they also do a lot in Texas. They also have some modeling in California as well, so some print stuff. Commercial stuff in LA.
And being from a smaller market, I know Audrey talks about this a lot, you know, building, you know, knowing what's going on in your market. Mm-hmm. But, you know, obviously, it's interesting, I think in the States, you can work a bit differently than we do up here in Canada, in the fact that you can work in any state. Is that right? Like, mm-hmm. You could go anywhere. So in Canada, it's a bit different. I mean, you can technically work in different parts of the country, but there's weird tax incentives. So we can't, like, shift. So it's like my market is solely Toronto and Northern Ontario. So it's a bit tricky with that. But no, I love what you're saying about the team. And I think when I got my kind of team built, it's really what solidified that this is now a job, mm-hmm. and that made it more serious. Because I think a lot of times creatives and people who work in the arts, it can be seen as a bit, you know, not as serious of a career. It's not a mm-hmm. classic career. But as soon as I had people invested in me, and it wasn't just me, like there's right. others involved here, that's when I was like, okay, you need to take this seriously. It's not just you anymore standing behind the mm-hmm. camera. There's others who are depending on you and relying on you, and you know, you're the product. You gotta do it. You gotta put in the work and the time.
Yeah, and be intentional. You know, it's just because I would just I would just show up and think I was going to be able to give a good audition.
Yeah.
And there was one in particular. It was a race car driver or something. And he was Southern, so I showed up and I did a Southern accent. Now, why I did a Southern accent, I have no idea, because I have a Southern accent, and it was horrible. There's a few stories like that. I think we probably all have those stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has there been anything that has surprised you about the industry in the last couple of years?
One thing, there's been some myths busted, primarily by Audrey. You know, there's always the myth of the breakthrough role, you know. Yeah. And I know it can happen, but I don't think that's what normally happens. You know, and Audrey talks about it, how, you know, you think the farther along you get, you know, after you get a few co-stars, you're going to get some guest stars, then you get a series regular, whatever, and that it gets easier as you go, and it's just the opposite. It gets harder, and it doesn't necessarily get harder. The road narrows. You know, you're up like now. I have one guest star on NBC, and I'm sorry, co-star, one recurring co-star on NBC, and so now then I'll be auditioning with people that have 6 co-stars or 8 co-stars, or at my age, someone recently I heard that the longer you wait to get in this career, which is a drag because that's what I've done, the longer you wait to get in this career, the more that's going to be a problem. Because guys my age who have been doing this their whole life, they're going to have some healthy resumes, and it's just something else to overcome. I don't get discouraged by that. It's kind of a challenge, but it is something I'm going to face. And so that surprised me. And then, I remember was recently on, or currently on the thing about Pam on NBC, Tuesdays at 10, 9
It's
Central.
so good.
And someone had commented, meaning well, they said, I'm glad you made it, and that's, there's that myth that once you get a role or whatever, you've made it, and it's I don't think you ever make it. I think Gwyneth Paltrow today is probably concerned about her next role. Everybody.
Yeah. Well, I think it's hard, especially if you've come from a more traditional career path, and path being the key word, right? Where it is for the most part in most other jobs, it follows a ladder, right? You do this for this amount of time, and then you'll get to the next step. And then you'll do this, and then you get this promotion. And then you do this for another couple years, and then you get to that promotion. You're constantly working your way up the ladder. That's how it works in most traditional careers. Where, like you were saying, acting is not like that. And it can be frustrating if you're expecting it, and then you just get let down. And then that can be really disheartening. And I think that probably plays towards why people just leave, right?
And I've had that happen. I book a nice role, and I thought, before I realized that that's not how it works, I booked a role and I thought, okay, this is good. Now I'm here. I've made it. I've arrived, or whatever. And nothing could be farther from the truth. But a couple of things. I got this from Glenn Morshower. I was in a Zoom meeting. And I'll go ahead and plug them if you don't mind. Solidarity.us is the website, solidarity.us. It's a lot of mostly union members, but they're welcome pre-members, members from the Writers Guild Association, Directors Guild, everything show up every Wednesday night at solidaritymeeting.com. Every Wednesday night we get together and we talk about the SAG contracts, and we talk about different things. And Glenn Morshower was a guest. And he said he didn't like the word pursue. He said you don't pursue dinner. You ever called someone up and said, would you like to pursue dinner tonight? Oh, you go and you go get dinner. And he also doesn't like the word rejection. He said, and the way I remember it, he said, rejection is like a personal judgment someone makes. It's just, you just weren't hired. And he said, in Hollywood, he sees people who come there pursuing an acting career and getting rejected, and they make it about 3 years with that mindset, So I am in an acting career, and I get a lot of times I'm not hired, but that's okay. And that's I hear I'm answering a question that hasn't been asked, but I've found, because there are so many auditions and there's so many reasons. This is something I learned from Audrey as well. There's so many reasons why you may not be cast, and chances are you don't want to know. It may be that you remind the director of a teacher that was mean to him. I mean, who knows? It can be the craziest reason. So what I have to hang my hat on is performing well, is the craft itself, doing a good audition, doing the best audition I can do, and that's where I have to get my satisfaction. And the rest of it is, frankly, it's none of my business. I need to do everything I can to make sure I fit the tone of the show and the pace of the show, and deliver the performance that I think that the writers and the director want. But once I do that, it's totally out of my control. And so I found in every area of life, the less time I spend thinking about things I have no control over, the better off I am. Matter of fact, we studied that in business. They talked about your sphere of influence, and so many times you waste energy trying to affect change in things outside of your sphere of influence. And they said if you focus inside your sphere of influence, actually you have more chances of affecting changes outside, if you just remain focused. And so that's what I try to do. I mean, I can't, a lot of times I get to thinking about it, and I'm not able to maintain that attitude at all times. But when I do, it's just a lot less stress. I like when I'm through with an audition, I throw the sides away, and try not to think too much about it.
That's really interesting. I love that sphere of influence because I think we so much crave control because control feels good, right? Control is calming. Control is, and control is also like external to us. And I think in a career like acting, when, and I say this, I think every episode, where we are the product, and so we individualize everything because we are it.
Right.
And when you have no control except for what you can do, I think it's overwhelming. It's also can make overwhelming, but also can be very empowering as well too. But it's a struggle between those two things.
Yeah,
I think,
and that's not to say that you can't do things to affect change in those areas to increase your sphere of influence. Like casting director workshops. If that will just as Audrey puts it, extrovert your talent. Just get in front of other people. So you can do things. Get representation in other areas. Whatever it is, if you're at a place where you could do a showcase, whatever you can do. Matter of fact, it's essential that you do. You can't just rest on your laurels and think it's going to come to you. But at the same time, you do what you do, and then the results are up to the muses.
Yeah. Do you have any more advice for someone who's coming into this career later on in life?
Yeah, I do, and I'm going to refer to my notes here because I tend to ramble about that. I've said a few times on this to be intentional, and my experience was to make a long-term plan. It's not going to happen overnight. You hear a few overnight success stories. Usually, when you dig into it, the overnight success story took 10, 15 years, or perhaps the person is a legacy. They have people in the business, which is fine. Nothing against that at all, but they had a leg up for some reason. So make a long-term plan and begin executing it now. Don't wait. One thing I love that Bonnie Gillespie talks about is she says, launch at 85%. Now, I can't take that to mean to submit, substandard work or anything like that. But if I wait for the stars line and for everything to be perfect, like if I would have waited till I had the opportunity, till I could act full time, if I had waited, then I'd be behind the eight ball, when that's happened. Instead, I made the plan, started executing it as soon as I kind of developed the plan. So don't wait till you're ready, whatever that means, and just be intentional. I needed to get experience acting. There's no replacement for that. I'm trying to think. Dustin Hoffman's masterclass. He talked about how he used to get together, and I'll never recall their names, but he came up with two other actors that are. Golly, I should have written this down because I usually talk about it. But anyway, he said they used to get together and have a salon once a week and read poetry, tell jokes, do a scene. He said, act. There's no replacement for it. So if you don't have any experience at acting, then I suggest community theater. Local theater. Little Rock, Arkansas is blessed with about 5 or 6 wonderful community theaters. They're so supportive. I've been in auditions before. And there was one in particular, there's a young lady, I don't remember what she was singing, something from Sound of Music, I think. And she kind of stumbled over a few of the words. Well, every woman in the audience started singing along with her. Yeah. All these other women auditioning, started singing along with her. This is a very, very supportive community. And it's a great experience. There are some wonderful actors that have no intention of pursuing acting as a career, but they just love performing. And so you get lots of experience that way. And then also I realized, I think Bill Murray puts it best. He said he prefers film to stage because you only have to be good for 7 minutes at a time. And so I decided and another thing I prefer about film is kind of the spontaneity of it. You don't have time to rehearse usually. Now I've seen theater actors who can rehearse a show for 2 months straight over and over and over, and still every single night it's as fresh as the first time they did it. I've seen people do that remarkably well. But I kind of get stuck in a rut or something if I do it over and over. So in film, there's kind of an excitement and a spontaneity of kind of letting it unfold there's kind of a realness to it, I think. So I started doing student films. You know, there's the University of Central Arkansas, the film school of the South, has a great film program, and so I did, you know, probably half the stuff on my reel is from student films. Now I hope to shortly replace that as these other things start coming out. But it's a great way to get footage. It's a great way to get experience on set. Great way to meet people, and who knows, you know, some of those guys directing or people directing student films may go on to become professional directors and remember that you helped them out when they were just a wee lad, you know. So that's a great thing to do as well. And then, you know, there's another thing that Bonnie Gillespie talks about, finding a pace car. You know, find someone in your market. Like you know, Brad Pitt should not be my pace car. You know, I need to find someone in my market, not necessarily my same casting, but someone that may have taken started where I'm at, kind of, or something like that. And look at what they did. Look at the team they assembled. Look at the work they've done. And not to copy them or anything, but just study what they've done. And luckily there's a couple of great examples here locally. Ed Lowry's one, Dean Denton is another. There's some actors, and they're not superstars, you know, but they've done some really good work. They're very talented people. And so I've kind of taken some of the same steps they've taken, and fortunately have had some of the you know, similar results.
Awesome. Do you have any crazy, fun, or interesting on-set stories?
Well, probably the most recent one, working with Renée Zellweger, was remarkable. She was just super nice. And, you know, we showed up on set at a little convenience store in Pearl River, Louisiana, I think it was. And, of course, me and another actor that was local, we were off in this one area, and Ms. Zellweger was in her trailer or whatever. So we didn't come together till we're on set. And we start blocking and start doing on-camera rehearsals and everything right away. No time to chit-chat. And probably about 5 or 6 takes in, she's always getting, if you've seen the show, she has a chill chugs in her hand.
Yep.
Matter of fact, I don't know if you can see it.
Did you steal it?
Nope, I asked for it, and they were kind enough to give it to me.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So I didn't get Renee to sign it. I wish I would have. But anyway, about 5 or 6 takes in, something like that. She had to, there was a lot of, as she put it, a lot of business. She had to get a cup, fill it with ice, fill it with drink, fill it, all this stuff. And as she was getting her drink, she was coming to the register and she dropped it. And it just splattered all over the floor. So we had to stop, you know, and she was very apologetic about it because, you know, lots of people had to come in there and start cleaning it up. So we had a few minutes, so I had a chance to talk to her. And I think I said Miss Zellweger the first time. I said, Miss Zellweger, I hope we get a chance to talk later. I hope I get a chance to fawn over you properly at some point because I love your work, loved you and Judy. And she said, did you not see what I just did? And I said, yeah. I said, I was a big fan, but after seeing that, I don't know. But she was lovely to work with, and then we actually rode the bus together back to the base camp and talked about dogs and accents. She said, I love your accent. I wish I could go back to my accent, but I can't, you know, because she's from Texas. And she's adopted that beautiful Missouri accent for this show, so she had to stick with that.
Oh, wow. That's so neat. The show's really great. It's on CTV here in Canada. Just let everyone know. Yeah, in Canada.
What time?
Yeah.
What day? What time?
I think it's on Tuesdays.
Okay. There's one other story that I'll tell. Kind of 2 stories, but if you don't mind. As far as on set, the first time I was on a major film, I was in a film called God's Not Dead, A Light in Darkness. And I got to work with some Hollywood legends, Ted McGinley, who was in a show called Love Boat, another show called Married with Children, major shows. And then John Corbett, who was in Northern Exposure, and then Academy Award-winning actress Tatum O'Neal, the youngest actor to ever win an Academy Award. Oh, wow. So I was and I just thought, golly, I'd love to, I knew they were in the film, and I thought, golly, if I could do a scene with them. Well, sure enough, my first scene was with all of them. And Ted McGinley, I don't know many men in Hollywood, but I always refer to him as the nicest man in Hollywood. He helped me get out there for the premiere, and has just been super, super kind. And we email back and forth occasionally. But so I got to work with these wonderful actors, and just hearing them tell stories. Like one story, Ted McGinley was talking about being at Henry Winkler's birthday party, and John Corbett did catering. He said, "I catered that party." You know, so just hearing stories like that, and but mainly working with them. Like there was a scene with Ted McGinley and Tatum O'Neal, and when it was over the shoulder on Tatum, you know, Ted stayed in there the whole time, of course, you know, and did this remarkable performance. And I remember Tatum O'Neal thanking him afterwards, you know, for standing there and doing that. So watching these people work at that level, and on the way home, I'm going to get a little emotional here, because on the way home I got to thinking about, you know, how long I had waited to do this, and in Little Rock, Arkansas, it's rare to be able to do something like that. And anyway, it just brought me to tears thinking about that. And I remember telling my wife, I think that's when she first got how much this meant to me. And another thing I learned from that, so I went to the premiere, you know, and there's the glitz, and of course I don't go on the red carpet. They don't want to see me on the carpet, but it was nice being there, and Ted McGinley was super nice to me, and it was wonderful to see it in that crowd and everything. And that was nice, but it didn't evoke those same emotions. And so that was let me know that it's not, because I always have to check myself, you know, check my motives. And so the glitz and the glamour is not where the joy comes from. The joy comes from the work. You know, that's what's really neat. Getting to work, and not just the cast, but to watch a professional crew like that come together. Very little talking. You know, they knew what they wanted to do, and they got together as a team. And when they had to flip the world, they flipped the world quickly and got us back on. So just everything about it was just remarkable. And also that every time I do something like that, it really increases my passion to get back to it. You know, I mean, and I still love doing the little indie films. You know, there's a friend of mine here, Lisa Crowell, who just did a film called Patient Justice that's won a few awards. I love doing stuff like that, but there's something about working with a big production and people with lots of professional experience. There's something really neat about that. I've heard you talk about some of the people you've had the opportunity to work with, you know, and just to see that level of professionalism and so forth.
Well, and it ties right back to your career, your time in the Marine Corps, right? Like it really shows again how if you work well as a team and everyone's there to try and get the same outcome, like it's kind of a magical thing, right? Not only like you're in the Marine Corps for you, but also the team that you've built around you who's developing your acting career. But then, exactly that. The people who are on this film set who've come together with the same goal in mind and are trying to all succeed and make everyone else look good. Because in the end, if that happens, the product looks good. Yeah. And then you look even better. It's a beautiful thing. I think it's kind of, I don't know, I see it in a lot of different kind of jobs and and like, you know, career paths and stuff. But I don't know, there's something pretty unique, I think, about the film industry with that teamwork aspect in mind. Yeah.
Another thing, another advice, and maybe not for just starting out, but if you do get an opportunity to be on set and to be involved with something like that, do your research. You know, you got to know who you're working with, because we're not, you know, in network TV, a TV show, the showrunner, you know, is a very important person. They're actually responsible for the whole creative aspect of the whole show. And the thing about Pam. Jenny Klein was the showrunner, and she wrote The Witcher, among a bunch of other things. So I knew what she looked like. I knew who she was. So when I saw her on set, and she was very nice, came up to talk to us, and I knew exactly who she was, and told her how much I loved The Witcher. And it looked like she really appreciated that, you know, because it's a fascinating show. Yeah. And then, excuse me. And the director of the first two episodes was Scott Winnett, who had won 2 Emmys for 30-something. You know, and it was wonderful working with him, because he directors to me the remarkable directors not only, of course, have a very clear vision of what they want, but they have a very clear way of communicating it to you. And he didn't hesitate, you know, telling me and Ms. Zellweger both, you know, exactly what he wanted. Very kind and everything, and hands-on. You know, he actually came up to where I was standing and said, you need some business to be doing. I said, well, here's the calculator. Oh yeah, that'll work. Just be doing that. And so knowing who you're working with, and Jenny Klein also was the showrunner. She also was one of the writers on the show as well. So writers can be your best friends.
Is there anything that you're looking forward to coming up this year?
Well, I'll tell you what, there hasn't been a lot of evidence of this, but my agent in LA has not been able to get me a whole lot of auditions because I'm in Arkansas. You know, people still aren't traveling. People, and also you probably see this too. They probably travel people from California up to where you are all the time. But do they ever travel you to California? No.
No. Yeah.
And sometimes they should, I think.
I'm with you.
But anyhow, so that's the business. Nothing against LA, nothing against the actors out there or anything, but you know, there are wonderful actors in other parts of the world. But she has, since the thing about Pam aired, I have had some other network auditions that I probably wouldn't have had because of that. And my agent in New Orleans has submitted me to some bigger projects, some guest star roles and things like that. And it's just the exposure, and you know, the being on a network show, it's not about or it is about, but it's only about it for one reason. It's about being exposed to a wider audience so that you have more opportunities. That's the only, or that's the best thing about that, is that you're seen by a wider audience and your talent is extroverted to more people. And so hopefully you have more opportunities. So I'm looking forward to see if that trend continues or if it kind of peters out, you know, because like on We Audition, I read with lots of people who have had guest stars, some many series regulars who are now, you know, reading for co-star roles. You know, I mean, it's just the nature of the business. Doesn't mean that they're not good or they weren't remarkable in the role, their series regular role. It's just that show's not there anymore. You know, and they have to, they're working hard to get their next role. So you know, just because I finally, you know, made it onto network television doesn't. It's weird. It kind of two things I think are true at the same time. It's the most important thing that's ever happened to my career. It's a huge step up, and it doesn't amount to a hill of beans. It doesn't mean anything because everybody, you know, most of the people going out for a lot of these roles that I'm going out for have multiple co-stars, maybe even some guest stars, maybe even some series regulars. So in that sense, it doesn't mean a thing. And I think both of those are true. And I don't mean to be negative about either one of those things either. It's just part of the business, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm just hopeful and curious and excited to see what this next year will bring, or not even this next year, what this week will bring. You know, it's Monday. Let me see.
Yeah.
Let me look at my email, see if there's anything yet. You know, and it is exciting. It's exciting to look at my email.
Yeah.
Nope, no auditions yet, but you know, maybe tomorrow.
Well, yeah, and I think that's what I definitely try and have that mindset as well too, right? Like every day is a new opportunity for something to tumble into your inbox.
Yeah.
And, you know, yeah, it can get discouraging over time if it's just been a long dry spell, but, you know, you just got to keep pushing forward.
Yeah.
There's something else you can do.
You know, I read somewhere that once you submit an audition, the average time before you hear something is 2 weeks to 7 years.
7 years.
So, you know, who knows?
That's
an
great.
audition I did 2 years ago,
Yeah.
they could have run into funding problems. I mean, you never know when
Such
the
a
next
good
offer
point.
might come.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned kind of briefly there the moment when your wife kind of realized how much this meant to you. What would you say your family, loved ones, how would they describe what you're doing these days for a living?
Well, my mom, God rest her soul, she would probably say I was fulfilling my destiny.
That's lovely.
It's kind of interesting. They're very supportive. I don't know. I think they would say also living my dream. You know, they're very happy for me. You know, I'm situated where I don't have to get the next role to pay my bills. You know, I did work for many years in business. My wife did too. So neither one of us have day jobs anymore, but thankfully we have an income to, you know, pay our bills and stuff. Another reason I work on We Audition, changing subjects again, is to make enough money to where, like, I bought a new camera, you know, and I bought these lights and a new microphone. You know, I can invest in my career without dipping into our retirement funds. You know, I don't like to use the word retirement because I'm not retired. I've just changed careers. But yeah, they're supportive. They're excited for me when I book stuff. I would imagine they get tired of me talking about it all the time. I try to be conscious of that. And, you know, like we had our granddaughter's birthday party here yesterday, 2 years old. And, you know, so I really try to focus on the really important things, family and so forth. But gosh, this stuff is so exciting, you know, but they're supportive. Then they're happy for me.
That's wonderful.
There was a story I'll go ahead and tell. My oldest daughter took acting in college. She got a degree in performing arts, or I don't know exactly what the specific degree was, and immediately went to LA right out of college. And she stayed out there 3 or 4 years. And she said that she just kind of lost the fire for it. You know, she'd grown up, always wanted to do that from a very young age. And she got out there and it just, I don't know if it wasn't, we talked about it fairly recently, but she just lost the desire for it. And she's moved back home and has a beautiful family now. But when she was out there, I remember talking to her one time, and I don't remember exactly what I said, but I was like, you know, you got to hustle and you got to do this, you got to do that. Whatever I said, unbeknownst to me, it kind of upset her. And she told her mom about that. And luckily, Catherine, my wife, she knew me well enough to say, she told her daughter, honey, you have to realize he would have killed to be where you are at your age. He's just living vicariously through you. And I hate that I did that, but I was like, golly, you know me better than I know myself.
Do you have any final words of wisdom?
I'll share one of the things that Glenn Morshower shared. He was talking about, you know, being able to envision things, you know, and the feasibility of something. Is it possible? Is it not possible? Is it certain? And in talking about that, I asked him about questioning, I think, imposter syndrome or whatever that I think a lot of actors suffer from. He said he said it wasn't a thing for him. Since his very first day in Hollywood, it wasn't a thing for him. But he said, you know, you have to cast yourself in these shows. He said, you know, ask yourself, why should you be cast in this show? He said, that's a legitimate question for any employer to ask an employee. Why should I cast you in the show? And he talked about, you know, I don't deserve any role. I want to earn a role. There's a difference between deserving something, you know, that speaks to privilege and entitlement and so forth. But I can earn it. And he said, ask yourself why you should be cast. And I remember thinking that I've been told on multiple occasions, I'm pleasant to work with, I'm fun on set, you know, I know my lines, I'm very professional, and I would be an asset to any show, you know, and I've got to have that confidence to know that I'm not an imposter. I do belong here. And then, you know, when I do get to questioning that still, and I'm like, you know, look at the people I've worked with, look at the opportunities I've been given. These people who gave me these opportunities know what they're doing. You know, the casting directors and the directors I've worked with, and so just don't linger in the doubt, and fear is a liar. That's the biggest thing. I have a very specific thing I won't go into, but I talk to fear out loud, and I tell it to get out. You know, fear is a liar, and fear and creativity cannot exist in the same brain. It doesn't. You know, when you experience fear, the creative side of your brain is shut off, you know, as a protective mechanism. So I've got to get rid of the fear. I guess that's it. Not a very succinct final thought, but
no, that's fascinating. I was really struck by that. You know, fear and creativity can't exist together, right? 'Cause I think so much of what imposter syndrome does is yeah, like you were saying, gets that wall up, being like, I'm not supposed to be here. And then that fear comes in and the creativity goes away.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Any advice for how do you push through that?
Just work. I mean, just
Yeah.
take action. Take action. It's something I learned in sobriety is you can't think your way into right acting. You have to act your way into right thinking. So if my head's not in the right place, just do something. Act as if my head is in the right place and take some positive action. The thinking will follow. Just take action. Take action. Take action. Do something. And not, I know actors can get stuck doing busy work, which is not, but it's better than nothing. But try to do something that is actually going to further your career and not just, don't do something to increase your star meter. That's not really going to help. Try to do something constructive. Take a casting director workshop or watch a video of what do they call them, master class, something like that. Take action. Yeah. Take positive action for your career. And there's someone talks about how an actor talked about on their checklist was to do something every day for your career. And like, if that has to be on your checklist, I don't know that you're in the right career. That's not on my checklist because I'm going to do something every day to further my acting career. I strongly suggest we audition. It's a great way to the community that you meet on there, and I'm not a paid spokesperson. I pay my monthly dues for that, which I make back the monthly things in one reading. But you practice your cold reading skills. You also stay up to date on what's casting. You get to meet some remarkable people and make a little money. And so I use it as a reader, but also now I've read with several people. So when I have an audition and I need a reader, there's certain readers I know that kind of the performance they'll give me. So I have certain readers that I like to use. So it's a wonderful platform.
Thank you everyone for tuning in, and thank you Barry for being my guest this week. Everybody, go check out his website, secondactactor.com. And while you're there, you can make a typo and put Second Act Actors in the search box, and then you'll get my website so you can support both of us. Again, he's got an incredible website with wonderful resources for second act actors like ourselves, and a wonderful blog post as well too, where he talks about his journey and again building up his team. Second Act Actor, Second Act Actors are not affiliated with each other, but as I said in the beginning, we 100% support each other. There is more than enough room for all of us in this beautiful world, and when one of us shines, all of us shine. I cannot get enough of that quote. That's a beautiful quote from Schitt's Creek, Moira Rose. Barry, you're fantastic. I'm so excited to watch your star on the rise. I know we talk about stars on the rise with young teen actors and child actors, but nah, Barry is that. He's got big things coming on the horizon. I'm so excited for him. What a gem. Thank you, Barry. I hope to tune in next week for another episode of Second Act Actors. Bye!